I married him because I was poor, desperate, and tired of watching my family struggle. He was rich, powerful, and disabled, and everyone said I was lucky. What they did not know was that behind those luxury walls, I was slowly being erased, used, controlled, humiliated in ways I never imagined possible. The night I discovered what he was truly doing to me, my hands started shaking so badly I could barely stand. That was the moment something inside me broke forever. But here is the part no one expected. I did not run, I did not beg. I stayed and I planned. My name is Alina, and I was 24 years old when I married a man everyone called my miracle. That is what people said when they heard his name. That is what they said when they saw the size of his house, his black cars, his tailored suits, and the way people bowed their heads slightly when he entered a room. They called him my blessing. They never once asked if he was my choice. I came from a family that counted coins before buying bread. My father had been sick for years. My mother worked herself thin. I was the oldest daughter, which meant I carried responsibility before I carried dreams. Every night I went to sleep with the same prayer in my chest, not for happiness, not for love, but for relief. Just relief. From hunger, from debt, from the constant fear that tomorrow would be worse. So when Victor appeared, it felt unreal. He was 42, wealthy, respected, and confined to a wheelchair after an accident years earlier. He spoke calmly, smiled carefully, and made promises that sounded like rescue. He said he admired my strength. He said I would never worry again. He said my family would be taken care of. I remember the way my mother cried when he proposed. Tears of gratitude. Tears of relief, not tears of joy. That difference mattered, even if no one acknowledged it. The wedding was beautiful, expensive, cold. Cameras flashed while my heart stayed silent. His hand rested on mine like ownership, not affection. I told myself love could grow. I told myself comfort mattered more than romance. I told myself I was strong enough to adapt. That was the first lie I told for survival. The house was massive, but it echoed. Long hallways, heavy doors, too much silence. The staff treated me politely, but not warmly. They watched. They always watched. I felt like I had entered a world where everything had rules I had not been taught. Victor changed the first night we were alone, not violently, not loudly. Quietly, his voice was still calm, but his eyes were not gentle anymore. They measured me, studied me, calculated me. "You will listen to me," he said, like he was explaining the weather. "You will trust my decisions. You will remember who saved you." That last sentence stayed in my bones. At first I thought it was nerves, control issues, insecurity because of his disability. I convinced myself compassion meant patience. But patience slowly became obedience. Obedience became silence. Silence became survival. He decided what I wore, what I ate, who I spoke to, how long I stayed outside my room. When I smiled, when I rested, when I existed. Every rule was disguised as protection. People will judge you. They want to use you. I am keeping you safe, but safety does not feel like a cage. I stopped calling my friends because he said they were jealous. I stopped visiting my family alone because he said it was dangerous. I stopped laughing freely because he said it was inappropriate. I became smaller every day, shrinking to fit the space he allowed me. And still, the world saw luxury. They saw jewels. They saw comfort. They saw privilege. They never saw the way my hand shook when I heard his wheelchair approaching down the hall. They never saw the way my chest tightened when he called my name. I learned the sound of his control, the soft hum of electric wheels, the click of the door locking, the pause before he spoke, when I braced myself for what rule would be added next. Sometimes, at night, I pressed my palm against the window glass and imagined freedom. Just air, just choice, just silence that belonged to me. And then his voice would cut through my thoughts, reminding me that imagination was a luxury I was not permitted. The injustice was not loud. It was organized, polite, strategic. He never raised his voice because he did not need to. Power does not scream. It waits, and I waited too. I waited because I thought endurance was strength. I waited because I believed gratitude meant surrender. I waited because my family depended on him. It's because my fear was quieter than my responsibility. But something inside me was watching, measuring, learning. I did not know it yet, but I was already changing, not breaking, changing. And the day I discovered how deeply he had planned my captivity, the silence inside me finally became dangerous. If you have ever felt trapped by someone who claimed they were saving you, this story is for you. If you have ever been underestimated, controlled, or made to feel like your silence was your duty, stay with me. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what you are about to hear is not just a story of survival. It is a story of power, patience, and justice. And by the end, you will understand why some revenge is not cruelty. It is balance. Victor control did not arrive suddenly. It layered itself into my life the way dust settles on furniture, slowly, invisibly, until one day everything felt heavy. At first it was small. A comment about my posture, suggestion about my tone, a reminder about gratitude. But each word carried weight, and each correction tightened the space I was allowed to breathe in. He began monitoring my schedule like a commander reviews a soldier. If you wake too late, you move too slowly, you waste time. Time. That was his favorite weapon. Every second I spent not serving his order was considered a flaw in my character. He replaced my wardrobe without asking. Bright colors disappeared, soft fabrics vanished. Everything became neutral, modest, controlled. When I questioned it, he tilted his head and smiled. "You represent me now. You must look disciplined." That word made my stomach turn. The staff followed his rules without question. If I asked for something small, a walk in the garden, a call to my sister, a simple visit to a shop, they would glance toward his office before answering. Sometimes the answer came back, no. Sometimes it came back delayed. Sometimes it never came at all. It was not my home. It was his system. The way he spoke to me in private was different from the way he spoke in public. In front of others, he praised me, called me gentle, devoted, loyal. They smiled at me with admiration, and I smiled back with a face that felt borrowed. Behind closed doors, his voice lowered. "You are forgetful. You are emotional. You would be lost without me." Each sentence chipped away at something inside my chest. He started controlling my meals. Portions became smaller. Certain foods were forbidden. If I gained weight, he criticized me. If I lost weight, he complimented my discipline. Either way, my body no longer belonged to me. I learned to eat slowly, quietly, obediently. The way he looked at me changed too. It was no longer admiration. It was assessment. Like I was a project he had invested in and now expected returns from. Sometimes he would watch me without speaking, just stare. And in that silence, I felt stripped of privacy, dignity, and identity all at once. I started sleeping lightly. The soft hum of his wheelchair outside my door became a signal that my peace was temporary. That control was always approaching. One night, I heard him speaking to someone on the phone. His voice was calm, confident, proud. "She is perfect," he said. "Obedient, grateful, exactly what I wanted." My fingers curled into my palm. I did not feel chosen. I felt selected. After that, the punishments became psychological. I displeased him. He withdrew privileges. No internet, no visitors. No outings. No access to my own family unless he approved. "You need to remember where your comfort comes from," he would say. And I did, every day, like a threat disguised as wisdom. The isolation worked. I started doubting my instincts. I started questioning my reactions. I started wondering if maybe I really was difficult, emotional, ungrateful. That was when I realized the most dangerous prison is the one that convinces you that you deserve it. One afternoon, I asked to visit my father. He was sick again. The hospital had called. My voice trembled when I asked. Victor did not answer immediately. He stared at me, long enough for the silence to hurt. You are too attached to your past, he said. You married me? That means your loyalty changed. My heart dropped. I only want to visit him, I whispered. And I only want respect, he replied. The visit was denied. That night I cried without sound. My tears soaked into the pillow like secrets that were not allowed to exist. Days later, I found my phone missing. When I asked, he did not deny it. You are becoming distracted, he said. Focus on your role, my role. As if I were cast in a play that never ended, I began to understand something terrifying. He did not love me. He owned me. My gratitude had been converted into permission, my silence into agreement, my survival into submission. And yet, something in me was waking. Because when control becomes predictable, it also becomes measurable. I started noticing patterns. The way he timed his rules, the way he repeated phrases, the way his confidence depended on my hesitation. He believed I was broken. That belief was his blind spot. One night, as he spoke about how helpless I would be without him, I looked into his eyes and felt something shift. Not fear, not submission, calculation. And in that moment, I realized he had made one mistake. He had taught me how power works, and I was about to learn how to take it back. The moment that changed everything did not come with shouting or violence. It came quietly, the way truth always does when it is about to shatter a life. I found it by accident, okay? Or maybe it was destiny finally getting tired of my patience. Victor had left his office door slightly open that afternoon. That alone was unusual. He treated that room like a vault. It was where his power lived, where his phone calls happened, where decisions were made that shaped my world without my permission. I walked past it slowly, meaning to go to my room when I heard my name. Not spoken, laughed. I stopped. My body reacted before my mind did. My heart accelerated. My palms went cold. Something in the tone of his voice made my stomach tighten. She will never leave, Victor said. She cannot afford to. There was another voice, male, unfamiliar. You are sure? The man asked. Victor chuckled. A soft, confident sound that made my skin crawl. I own her loyalty. I bought her family's survival. That is stronger than love. My knees weakened. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. Bought. That was the word. Not rescued. Not helped. Bought, the man laughed. Smart. Emotional debt is the strongest chain. I felt like the air had been pulled from my lungs. All this time I had believed my endurance was noble, that my sacrifice was honorable. But in his mind, it was a transaction. A contract signed with my fear. I stepped away quietly and returned to my room, closing the door as if nothing had happened. But inside me, everything was screaming. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at my hands. They were shaking, not from fear, from fury. I had not been weak. I had been manipulated. I had not been protected. I had been purchased. I had not been loved. I had been owned. My mind replayed every moment I had thanked him, every time I had lowered my eyes, every time I had convinced myself that obedience was strength. Each memory burned with new meaning. I walked to the mirror and looked at my reflection. I barely recognized the woman staring back. Her eyes were tired. Her mouth was tight. Her posture was cautious. But beneath that, there was something else. A sharpness that had been buried for too long. I whispered, I am not property. Saying it out loud felt like rebellion. For the first time, I did not imagine escape. I imagined strategy. I thought about his routines, his reliance on predictability, his certainty that I was incapable of resistance. He had built his control on the belief that I was grateful enough to stay silent forever. That belief was his weakness. I realized something else that terrified and empowered me at the same time. I knew him better than he knew me. I knew his habits, his language, his blind spots. I knew how he tested obedience. I knew what made him feel secure, and I knew how deeply he underestimated me. The fear that had lived in my chest for months transformed into clarity. Fear asks for survival. Clarity demands action. I did not cry. I did not panic. I did not collapse. I planned, but not on paper, not in words, in patience, in observation. In silence that was no longer submission, but preparation. That night, when he came to check on me, I smiled the way he liked. Soft, controlled, obedient. He nodded, satisfied, unaware that the performance had become deliberate. "You are learning," he said. I almost laughed. Learning, yes, but not what he thought. After he left, I lay in the dark and allowed my thoughts to sharpen. I replayed the conversation, the laughter, the word bought. The certainty in his voice. He believed my dependency was permanent. He believed my gratitude was unbreakable. He believed my silence meant loyalty. That was the moment his power expired, 'cause I stopped asking myself how to survive him, and started asking how to outthink him. My heart no longer raced when I heard his wheelchair. Slowed, calculated, measured. I watched more closely, listened more carefully, remembered more deliberately. Every detail became useful. Every routine became a map. I was not trapped anymore. I was positioned. And that realization was more dangerous than any scream, any threat, any rebellion he could have imagined. Because when a woman who has been underestimated decides to stop being grateful and start being strategic, the balance of power shifts forever. He thought I belonged to him. But in that moment, I belonged to myself. And that was the beginning of the end for Victor. I did not rush. Revenge that is rushed is revenge that fails. I moved slowly, carefully, like someone cleaning glass around a sleeping snake. Every smile I gave him was measured. Every nod was calculated. I became the version of myself he trusted the most. Quiet, agreeable, predictable. That was step one. I started observing everything, not casually, precisely. His calls, his assistants. The time he received documents. The way his staff responded when his tone shifted. The moment his confidence turned into arrogance. Arrogance always creates carelessness. I noticed he kept his personal laptop unlocked in his office when he believed I was in another part of the house. He believed I was uninterested in his business. He believed I was incapable of understanding it. That belief became my invitation. One afternoon, he left to attend a private meeting. I counted the seconds after his wheelchair disappeared down the hallway. My pulse was steady. My hands were not shaking. That scared me and empowered me at the same time. I walked into his office. The room smelled like leather and expensive cologne. The curtains were half closed, letting in thin strips of light that fell across his desk like prison bars. His laptop sat there open, waiting. I sat in his chair. That alone felt illegal. I touched the keyboard and I began. I searched through emails first. Contracts, conversations, transactions, patterns. The deeper I went, the clearer everything became. He did not just control me. He controlled people, businesses, settlements, assets hidden under different names. Financial movements that smelled like corruption. My breath slowed. This was not emotional power anymore. This was legal power. I copied everything onto a small flash drive I had hidden inside my sleeve. It felt warm against my skin. Like proof, like armor. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. I froze. My heart struck my ribs once, hard, then went quiet. The sound passed. A staff member, not him. I continued. When I finished, I closed the laptop exactly the way he had left it. I stood, adjusted the chair, and walked out like I had never entered. That was step 2. Step 3 was preparation of allies. Quiet ones. Invisible ones. A lawyer who specialized in financial exposure. An investigative journalist who owed my cousin a favor. A bank auditor who knew how to trace hidden ownership. I did not tell them my story. I gave them evidence. That is the difference between emotion and impact. Then I waited. Victor grew more confident, more relaxed. He believed my obedience had deepened. He believed my silence was submission. He believed he had won completely. One evening, he said, "You have finally learned gratitude." I smiled and replied, "You taught me well." The words tasted sharp. The execution began 2 weeks later. The journalist published first. A quiet article, no names, just patterns. Just data. Just financial irregularities tied to anonymous sources. Victor dismissed it. Then the auditor moved. Accounts froze. Transactions paused. Questions were asked. Victor became irritated. Then the lawyer sent notices. Lawsuits, investigations, exposure of manipulation, and coercive control through financial dependency. Victor became alarmed. That night he summoned me. His office was darker than usual. The air felt thick. His jaw was tight. "Do you know anything about this?" he asked. I walked closer, slowly, calmly. "No," I said. "But I know who you are." His eyes narrowed. I continued. "You believed ownership was invisible. That gratitude erased consent. That silence meant loyalty." He said nothing. I placed the flash drive on his desk. The small click as it touched the wood was louder than thunder. His face changed. Not anger. Fear. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No," I replied. "This is accountability." His hands trembled against the armrests of his wheelchair. The man who controlled everything could not control this. I leaned forward. "You said you bought my loyalty. You were wrong. You funded your own exposure." He stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. I turned and walked away. Not fast, not dramatic. Final. Behind me, his empire was collapsing one document at a time. The day everything became public, the house felt different. The walls did not echo with authority anymore. They held tension. The air was sharp, electric, alive. I could feel it in my skin the moment I woke up. Something irreversible had begun. Victor was silent that morning. No instructions, no commands. No calculated reminders of who owned what. The staff moved differently, too. Their eyes avoided his office. Their voices lowered. Fear had shifted direction. I stood by the window and watched black cars arrive at the gate. Not his official ones, legal ones, the kind that do not ask permission. My heart did not race. It settled. This was not panic. This was completion. When they entered the house, their footsteps were firm, professional, unafraid. Papers in hand, authority in posture. They did not look impressed by luxury. They looked prepared to dismantle it. Victor called my name from his office, not with power, with desperation. I walked slowly. Each step grounded me. Each breath reminded me that I was no longer small inside his world. I was larger than it now. When I entered, he was pale. His hands clutched the armrests of his wheelchair like anchors. "You did this," he said. I did not deny it. I did not need to. "I revealed you," I replied. "Shh, you did the rest to yourself." His eyes searched my face, desperate for hesitation, for guilt, for regret. He found none. "Shh, you were nothing without me," he whispered. I leaned closer, just enough for him to see the certainty in my expression. "And you were everything wrong with me." The door opened behind us. Officials stepped in. Lawyers followed. Victor tried to straighten himself, tried to summon authority that no longer responded to him, spoke calmly, professionally. Their words were precise. Allegations, financial misconduct, coercion, manipulation, asset investigation, pending charges. Each word landed like a verdict. Victor turned to me again. "You were supposed to be grateful." I smiled slowly. "I was grateful enough to survive, brave enough to end you." The humiliation was not loud. It was absolute. The man who once controlled every breath I took could not control the direction of this room anymore. He was no longer the center. He was the subject. They rolled him out of his own office. That image stayed with me. Not dramatic, not violent. It's final. The wheelchair that once symbolized his authority now looked small in the hallway, vulnerable, exposed, watched instead of watching. I did not follow. I returned to my room and closed the door behind me. For the first time, it was not a cage. It was mine. My knees weakened then. The adrenaline released. My body finally acknowledged what my mind had already accepted. It was over. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, pressing my palm against my chest. My heartbeat was steady, not chaotic, steady like resolution. I laughed softly once. Then again, a sound I had not made freely in months. No fear followed it. No apology, just relief. Later, the news spread. Headlines, whispers, staff speaking openly. The house that once revolved around him now spoke of him like a memory already fading. I walked through the halls without lowering my eyes. People stepped aside for me. Not because of fear, because of recognition. I had not destroyed him emotionally. I had dismantled his illusion of invincibility, and that was stronger than rage. That was justice. When I passed the mirror that evening, I stopped and looked at myself. My posture had changed. My shoulders were open. My eyes were clear. The woman staring back at me was not surviving. She was standing. Victor had once said, "Power does not scream." He was right. It walks away quietly while everything you built collapses behind it. And I walked. I did not feel victorious in the way people imagine victory. There was no celebration inside me, no shouting, no dancing, no rush of pride. What I felt was clarity, a deep, steady calm that replaced the constant tension I had lived with for so long. It was the kind of peace that comes after a storm has passed and you finally hear your own breathing again. People talk about karma like it is something magical, like the universe reaches down and balances scales on its own. I do not believe that anymore. Karma is not magic. Karma is consequence. It is the moment when lies become too heavy to carry and control becomes too obvious to hide. It is the moment when the truth no longer needs permission to exist. Victor did not fall because I hated him. He fell because he believed he was untouchable. That belief is the most dangerous weakness anyone can have. For a long time, I thought strength meant endurance. I thought strength meant silence. I thought being grateful meant accepting whatever came with the help I was given. I was wrong. Gratitude does not cancel dignity. Survival does not erase boundaries. Help does not grant ownership. The lesson I carry now is simple but powerful. Anyone who reminds you constantly of what they have done for you is not helping you. They are investing in control. I did not forgive Victor. Forgiveness is not always healing. Sometimes accountability is healing. Sometimes walking away without compassion is what restores balance. I do not owe peace to the person who tried to erase me. I owe peace to myself. What I gained was not revenge. It was restoration. I learned to trust my instincts again. I learned that fear can be useful when it is listened to instead of suppressed. I learned that patience can be a weapon when it is guided by intention instead of desperation. And most importantly, I learned that power does not always look like force. Sometimes it looks like restraint. Sometimes it looks like preparation. Sometimes it looks like waiting for the perfect moment to speak truth. My future no longer feels like something I must earn permission for. It belongs to me. Every choice, every decision, every breath. I no longer calculate my worth based on how useful I am to someone else. I am not grateful for what happened to me. But I am grateful for who I became because I survived it. I became observant, strategic, unbreakable in quiet ways. The woman who once believed obedience was safety now understands that self-respect is freedom. The woman who once thought silence was strength now knows that awareness is power. If there is one thing I want anyone listening to understand, it is this. Control often wears the costume of care. Pay attention to how someone treats your independence. Do they protect it, or do they slowly take it away while calling it love? You are not difficult for wanting choice. You are not ungrateful for wanting autonomy. You are not weak for wanting dignity. And if someone ever tries to convince you that your survival belongs to them, remember this story. Remember that power shifts the moment you stop begging for permission and start honoring your worth. Victor lost everything because he underestimated silence, because he misunderstood patience, because he confused gratitude with loyalty. I gained everything because I finally understood myself. That is not revenge. That is reclamation. If this story made you think, feel, or remember your own strength, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories of justice and survival. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to reclaim your power from someone who underestimated you? Your voice matters here, and your story might be the one that inspires someone else to stand up.